Welcome to SWK 700, Week 7. The topic is Humanistic Practice, Existentialism, and Spirituality. The material on the screencast is from Pain, Modern Social Work Theory. Let's start with the meaning of each of these terms. So humanistic refers to the capacity of conscious human beings to reason, make choices, and act freely, uninfluenced by religion or superstition. So humanistic, think of the human experience, think of human capacity, human potential. Existentialism is concerned with the meaning of life, the meaning of existence. It focuses on the capacity of people to have control over their lives, to gain personal power, to make their own decisions in their life and live their lives the way they want to live them, the way they see fit, and to live a life with meaning and purpose. And spirituality is also about the human search for meaning and purpose in life. Spirituality is not the same as religion. Religion refers to an organized system of beliefs and values. Spirituality is about recognizing that the human condition also includes a dimension beyond just human existence, and that there is a larger meaning in life. Does not refer to belief in God or one God, but rather spirituality believes in a sense that there is more than human life, whether it includes a pantheon of gods, whether it includes God as a woman, whether it includes pagan beliefs about the spirit of animals as well as inanimate objects. All of that can be included in the term spirituality. So we need to make a distinction here. Humanistic and existentialism beliefs and ideas and approaches are systems of secular philosophical beliefs. It means that they are not rooted in any organized religion or any system of religious beliefs. They're secular, they're based on human consciousness, the condition of human beings, and the condition in which human beings live their lives. So these perspectives are seen as integrating a wide variety of experiences. Cognitive experiences, psychological experiences, physical experiences, emotional experiences, all into a whole person or a whole personality. As opposed to spirituality, which does recognize a dimension beyond human existence, whether that dimension can be known or unknown, relates to your specific spiritual beliefs. But there is a dimension beyond just the human being that includes a sense of spirit, a sense of soul, a sense of the meaning of life beyond how we live our lives on earth. The main contribution of humanistic practice for social work practitioners focuses on enhancing individual personal development. The aims are to understand personal identity, especially in relation to other human beings, and I would actually include in relation to other animals as well as inanimate objects on Earth. I think that it also includes nature. The focus of social work is on empowering and liberating individuals. So this aim is very individualistic. What liberation means to each individual can be quite different, and what empowerment means in this context of humanistic practice is also about self-actualization and one's own values and how those are defined. Humanistic practice values and empowers all aspects of human creativity, all kinds of expressions of art, expressions of creation, expressions of the self, as well as spirituality, are important elements of the human experience. Again, think about artistic expression, you think about individualized worldviews, and you think of the focus being on one's internal processes and how those are manifested in the social environment. And the value of humanistic practice is on shared human experiences as the basis for human understanding. I see there a connection with social constructionism, how we share our experiences and create our own understanding of the world, our own understanding of ourselves and of our environment. And there's a support for human rights in human society. Again, nature is not specifically mentioned on this slide, but I would definitely add it values the environment, it values nature, and it values human beings as being interconnected with their environments. One of the major connections to social work is the emphasis of humanistic practice on the therapeutic relationship. Humanistic practice is very relational. It's about the worker and the client working collaboratively, constructing the treatment process, and really individualizing what the treatment process looks like. So humanistic approaches call attention to the importance of the therapeutic relationship, emphasizes the skills and person of the practitioner in their relationship with the client. I think we've talked a little bit about use of self and practice wisdom. I think these pieces are very much connected as the practitioner, the social worker, really uses their humanity, uses their skills in connecting with the client as part of this approach. And the skills of empathy and establishing a genuine, warm relationship with the client are important aspects of humanistic practice. The chapter we read for today from Payne's textbook mentions Carl Rogers, does not really go into depth very much, but Carl Rogers has been a giant in the field of humanistic practice. So, born in 1902, died in 1987, he developed his theory of client-centered therapy, especially during the 1960s and 70s. This approach was very much valued and implemented by psychologists and social workers. So he was a psychologist. His background was also a very Christian background, grounded in theology. So it's not an accident that his humanistic approach also incorporates the idea that human beings can reach higher and greater senses of their potential, also known as self-actualization. And he focused on the therapeutic relationship especially, and developed his client-centered therapy, nowadays more commonly called person-centered therapy. But he was one of the first to really shift the terminology from patient and from that more medical model, focus on deficits and problems, to one of working with the client as an equal. And so Carl Rogers' person-centered perspective believed that, and he suggested that people have natural tendencies to grow, to become healthy, and to move towards self-actualization. And he identified three conditions that facilitate human growth and reaching human potential. And he saw these just the way that you use water, nutrients, and light to facilitate the growth of a tree, so can humans grow, spring new buds, and develop new branches. So the three conditions are that the practitioner needs to be genuine. So the idea of genuineness, being honest, direct, not using a facade, but being a human being and connecting with the human being in your client. The second condition is acceptance, also known as unconditional positive regard. So it's being non-judgmental, it's being accepting of what the client brings, and it's acknowledging client's feelings and behaviors, I would include, without passing judgment. Again, you're seeing their humanity. And then the third condition is empathy, tuning into the feelings of your client, demonstrating your efforts to understand, active listening, and really joining with your client. Providing a sense of acceptance, safety, and working towards human potential rather than just the focus on solving problems. So there are three main points here on humanistic practice. It helps people find ways of living that help them to be more secure in the decisions they have made. Again, it's about people finding a sense of agency in their lives, finding a sense of meaning and purpose, and finding their own unique pathways through their life course. I would definitely add the connection to the life course, humanistic practice. I think it looks at the development over the lifespan and the ways that people gain wisdom, gain experience, gain capacities to live their lives in better ways. Number two, helps people to be secure in the social situations they are a part of. So it is, again, about relationships, not only to people, but relationships to other things, events, I would even say aspirations that they're holding as part of living in their social context. And then number three, help people to bounce back from adversity. Finding meaning in the difficulties you face in life, finding ways to integrate the learning from those difficulties into how you live your life is also part of humanistic practice. It embraces all aspects of the human experience and doesn't see any one part as being particularly negative, but rather a function of living life as a human being, having, a sense of consciousness, walking on the earth and sharing the earth with other beings, plants, animals, people, all of those things. Let's turn to existential social work. So I think the pain chapter did not focus very much on existential social work. He did mention Viktor Frankl, who very much is about finding meaning, especially finding meaning through suffering. Irving Yalom is also another theorist who has done a lot of work in existential social work. So there are four main themes. One is that existentialism also has an emphasis and places particular highlight on individual freedom and the uniqueness of the person. Again, highly individualistic. Number two, the recognition of suffering as a necessary part of the ongoing process of life, and that we can find meaning and purpose in the ways that we are hurt, feel pain, and suffer. That these are actually motivations for human growth, and that they help us to gain greater understanding or realization of the meaning of life. So suffering is seen as a deep psychological and, I would add, spiritual condition. Even though existentialism does not incorporate spirituality, so that probably wasn't the best word to use, but it sees suffering as communication, what you can learn from and gain greater insight. Perhaps insight is a much better word than spirituality. So moving on with additional points and themes about existential social work. Number three is the emphasis upon one's involvement in the immediate moment. So it focuses on the present, looks at what's happening in the immediate environment, in the immediate, psychological state of the person. And it looks at, we can only really know what is happening right now. Right now is the most genuine way of discovering one's identity and what life is all about. And this is seen as an open, ongoing process. It is not finding one truth and sticking with it. It's about an ongoing process. However, it does recognize that the past is the past, the future is unknown, and all we have is the present moment. And that whatever is happening at the moment, whether it is something pleasurable, positive, whether it's something stressful, difficult, or, an active, deep pain and suffering, that this is the moment that we have. And what can we discover about ourselves and about life in this specific moment? And number four is a sense of commitment. Seeks to maintain a life of both discipline and spontaneity. It's a balance between those. Of contemplation and action. Of egolessness and an emerging care for others. So very much it's about the balance between our own unique life, our own unique psychological, emotional, physical state, and I would include cultural state, and the balance with other individuals, groups, and events in the environment. So balance is very important. Finding that equilibrium is also very important. Now we turn to spirituality and its importance in practice. I found this quote that I thought would capture some of what spirituality is all about in social work. And it says, social workers should be alert that their clients may have significant religious or spiritual beliefs and be familiar with the commonalities, and that failure to explore spirituality and other spiritual concepts that our clients may hold close, especially in their values, traditions, beliefs, this failure can prevent social workers from understanding a major area of strength, I would include resiliency, and potential care for others. So it really speaks to the way that spirituality has not been a huge focus of social work practice. Yes, there is research. There are spiritual assessments, Spirituality is often part of a biopsychosocial model, but where it has not been fully explored is in the way that spiritual beliefs and spirituality can coexist or work side by side, can be integrated into social work practice on a regular basis with all our clients, and not only when clients bring it up as important. So, in thinking about the past decade and even longer, spirituality as an element of social work practice is seeing somewhat of a resurgence, while organized religion um, has experienced a decline in many areas. Um, Spirituality and the idea that people have about life, about what their position is, and about their connections with their souls, their greater ideas about creation, about purpose, all of these pieces that are spiritual and not necessarily religious are integral parts of living in our society. And there are many, many ways that people practice their spirituality, from pagan beliefs to Buddhist beliefs to Christian, Jewish, Muslim beliefs, to cultural beliefs that are based on spirituality, such as Native American spirituality. All of these are examples of the way that people infuse their life experience and their understanding of what life is about with spirituality that also recognizes that there is more beyond this human experience, that as human beings, we have spirits, we have inspirations, we have abilities, we have capacities, and that we also have the capacity to be more and be larger in that spiritual sense of self. So, going on with the slide here, there's a need to respond to diverse ethnic and cultural groups who have strong values and hold religious beliefs and traditions. So, the Latinx population, for example, is about 95% Catholic. There's also a large Pentecostal segment. And in order to work with Latinos, there is a need to understand their spiritual or religious beliefs. For example, in my practice with many older Latina women, there is a connection with God, with the Virgin Mary, that also provides a sense of resiliency and a sense, a guiding light in their lives. So their religious beliefs are very important and can be used in social work practice as a way of providing support and exploring the ways that they make sense of their own lives, including their families, including their social context, and the choices that they've made. Another reason that spirituality is important for us to understand and integrate into our practice is because faith communities and churches make large contributions in social services, providing community services and social care. Very often with immigration, many faith communities and churches have stepped up, provide funding, provide resources for helping people who are in need, and especially with immigrants as one population. Churches and other faith communities in low income areas play an important role in the community in providing resources and providing a haven for people who need to find some supports. So important to understand faith communities and churches, temples, mosques, and storefront churches in the communities where you're working with your clients, and the role in informal leadership and informal sources of support that these can make. And finally, in our society today, there's a growing criticism of the emphasis on materialism and consumerism, and there may be a rejection of buying things for the sake of buying things, and many people are trying to find a deeper meaning in life, beyond money, beyond owning things and possessions, and focusing on what is important and your own definitions of what is important and what gives meaning in your life and what is your purpose and what makes life worth living for you. So I have two examples of the integration of social work and spirituality. One is Graham's 2002 work on African-centered spirituality, and as an example of how spiritual traditions can be useful in social work. Graham identified the principles of African-centered worldviews. As we read them, think about social work values. Think about the connections you can make and the way that this approach to spirituality is connected with social work practice or complements social work practice. So the first bullet point, all things, people, animals, and inanimate objects are interconnected. Human beings are spiritual. They are connected to others and to their creator. Notice how it mentions creator and not God. Creator is not gendered. The third bullet point, individuals cannot be understood separately from their collective identity. Collective identity includes their culture, includes their environment. People's lives and experiences are integral to their family and community resources and connections, and commonalities are more important than individuality. So very much a collective perspective that people are interconnected, that they are interdependent on one another, and that no one individual is more important than another. And finally, body, mind, and spirit are equal and interrelated. Each should be equally developed towards mat, which means a balanced sense of truth, right, harmony, and order. So there's very much a value base, very much a cultural and tradition base and beliefs that are captured in these African-centered worldviews that would be very important to integrate into social work practice for people who identify with African-centered spirituality. You would not necessarily know that they hold this worldview unless you include spirituality as part of your assessment and ask about someone's religious or spiritual beliefs. Another example of how social work is intertwined with spirituality is working with Native American individuals, groups, families, tribes. So this slide says there's no one path of practice for American Indians. You need to explore their path and their beliefs with the individuals, families, or groups you're working with who self-identify as Native American. For many Native Americans, their spirituality is part of their everyday life. It's incorporated or integrated into every aspect of how they live their lives. So they may not necessarily attend church, they may not necessarily attend a specific house of worship. However, their spirituality is integrated into what they do and how they do it. Community and family ritual is important. Again, need to have an understanding of the ways that they may practice and create rituals around their spirituality, and that everything that is living is equal on an equal level, and that everything that is living is seen as sacred. There's a typo on the third bullet point. On the fourth bullet point, it is sacred and on an equal level. So, and giving is one of the highest regards for spiritual life. So giving includes making offerings, making sacrifices, acknowledging that the way one lives on earth, one needs to give as well as take. So there are specific practice concepts that are connected with humanistic existentialism and spirituality. And I think these practice concepts really relate to all three of these approaches. And I also want to mention that these approaches are very much interconnected. Even though humanistic and existentialism is secular and spirituality kind of transcends human experience into something greater, these approaches do focus on human experience and the ways that people find purpose, meaning in their lives. So there definitely these practice concepts can apply to all three of these approaches. Number one, practice is operationalized as interpersonal and social equality. So the emphasis on humanity, the emphasis on people's experience being shared, and that everyone is on an equal footing, very important. Shared human experiences, very important to understand and to consider when working with individuals, that no one person is better or superior, no one's experience is superior, but rather humanity is one and we're all in it together. Self-actualization and self-fulfillment are social work objectives that are drawn from humanistic approaches. So you may recognize self-actualization as part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And just to review that for a moment, Payne doesn't really talk about Abraham Maslow, and many people may have actually be familiar with his psychology from undergraduate. I'll just mention the hierarchy. Self-actualization is at the very top. It means fulfilling one's potential. And it includes, their creative activities and capacities. It includes, being whole in your sense of self and living your life to its fullest potential. So for Maslow, self-actualization was at the very top of the pyramid. And it only evolves after your basic needs are met for food, water, warmth, shelter. It only evolves after your safety and security needs are met. It only evolves after your psychological needs for love, intimate relationships, emotional connections, friends and lovers are met. And after your self-esteem needs are met, your feelings of competence and accomplishments. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs really presents a pretty tall order of human development. Um, and I want to suggest to you that self-actualization is an ongoing process. You may experience moments where you feel you have self-actualized, but I think it's a very difficult place to hold on to on a regular basis. And, life is too dynamic, things are constantly changing, to think about a pyramid that you reach the top and that's it. So moving on to the third bullet point, empathy, congruence, genuineness, and unconditional positive regard are the attributes of a humanistic practitioner. So going back to Carl Rogers, and the importance of the relationship, the importance of being who you really are with your clients, with approaching them with non-judgment, approaching them with acceptance and positive feelings are attributes of the humanistic practitioner. And spiritual ideas of wholeness and connectedness, body, mind, and spirit. Moving on, the interaction of body, mind, and spirit is an organizing concept in spiritual care. We need to pay attention to all of these dimensions of human experience. Regarding existentialism, it acknowledges that the human condition is often one of loneliness and isolation. Even when you are with people, even when you're in a crowd, even if you have family and friends, there are still moments and times when you may feel disconnected and isolated. Existentialism also acknowledges that people have a fear of death. We don't know what happens after we die. We only know that that is a certainty in everyone's life, and that this fear often plays a role in holding us back from living our full lives. So feelings of dread, feelings of suffering, pain, hurt are part of the human condition, and they're also ways of communicating and learning and gaining important insights. So exploring these are part of what a humanistic existentialist practitioner would do. The ideas of decentralization, which means that also acknowledging that humans need to make room for other people, other things, and shared experiences in their lives. For sustainability, we need to think about what is generative, what provides satisfaction, and what provides continuous experiences. And interdependence are social objectives. Sustainability, I want to also add, refers to sustaining the environment, sustaining nature as a partner in human experience. We really can't be separated from the environment and from nature. And then moving on, the practitioner is generally non-directive, non-judgmental, and uses active listening. Goes along with the emphasis on the relationship, with the emphasis on collaboration, and with the practitioner and the client on an equal status. And finally, caring and creativity are essential in humanistic practice. So I think here about expressive therapies, art, music, dance, writing. All of these pieces are about expressing your thoughts, your innermost feelings, and sharing these with others, or at least putting images and words and actions to what is going on internally. And these are important ways of communicating and understanding. So the body is also quite important in humanistic practice. And as with all theories, there are critiques and limitations. So I chose 4 main critiques. There are probably others that you can think of as well. So the first critique is that humanistic ideas are interesting, they're creative, they may be fun to think about, but they lack substance. So can they really address people's problems in living? If people's problems are not emphasized or even acknowledged as difficulties, how can people really improve and move beyond? For example, major mental illness. For example, lack of resources. Can humanistic ideas put food on the table when your basic needs are not met? The second critique is that the ideas are vague and idealistic. When people are having difficulties making ends meet, financial difficulties, lots of conflicts in their lives, isn't it a little idealistic to think about human potential without addressing immediate needs? Isn't thinking about your life purpose a luxury and a privilege when you're struggling on a day-to-day basis? The third critique, lack of clarity. What do these really mean? Does self-actualization mean the same for every person? One person's self-actualization may be someone else's meeting their basic needs for themselves and their family. So there's a lack of clarity, and a lack of clarity means things can't really be generalized. They stay in the realm of unique and individualized. Along with the lack of clarity, they're difficult to operationalize. How do you measure progress from a humanistic perspective? How do you measure what it means to be self-actualized? How do you measure your purpose in life? And then finally, this approach does not identify specific aims or action sequences in practice. It's not a practice model. Doesn't really provide specific goals or outcomes. Therefore, you can also critique, is this really a theory? Does this make sense? Is it useful for us in social work practice as a standalone theory? Reflect on the ways that humanistic approaches might be combined with other practice models or other approaches. Does it increase the value of humanistic approaches? Does it make humanistic approaches more viable for us as social work practitioners? And finally, review Glassman's 2009 Humanistic Group Model on pages 286 to 289 in Payne's textbook. We're going to use his model in our Zoom room. Thank you for listening this far. I hope you enjoyed the screencast on humanistic practice, existentialism, and spirituality.